Before we talk about the first principle of emotional wellness, isolation, I wanted to take a moment. If this season feels a little different for you, maybe it's your first holiday after a big life change, or maybe your loved ones are far away. I want you to know you're not alone. My own family is walking through something similar. My son in law is deployed for the first time, and Christmas will look different for my daughter and grandkids. But even in the shift, there's space for love, for laughter, and for kindness. So if you're feeling a little tender this season, here's what I want you to hear. You matter. You're seen, and I'm sending you a big warm hug through the mic. And here's the beautiful thing. This season gives us so many small ways to lift each other up. Smile at someone, invite a neighbor over, drop off cookies, send a cheerful e-card. I'll link a free e-card service in the description. These little gestures ripple outward, and they remind us that connection is always possible. I lived through holidays that felt quiet, and I've been blessed by the kindness of others. That's why our home became a place where no one had to be alone. And that's the spirit I want to share with you today. Our hearts are open, our homes are open. Let's be that light for someone else. Okay, before I get misty-eyed, Merry Christmas to each of you. You're in my thoughts and prayers. Now let's dive into today's empowerment. Let's go. Let's take a look at a U.S. loneliness statistics from 2025. It says that 52% of Americans report feeling lonely. 47% say the relationships aren't meaningful. 12% feel they have no close friends. 58% sometimes or always feel like no one knows them well. These numbers reflect a growing emotional disconnect, especially in urban and high-income areas. This study was done by the Loneliness Project of 2025. So we looked at the US stats. Let's take a look at what the global stats are, the global social isolation rates from 2009 to 2024. For those who are listening and not able to see, we have a chart in front of us. On the left side, it's showing the isolation rate in percentage, starting from 19.5% up to 21.5%. And on the bottom, it's by year. And we see in 2009 that the isolation or the loneliness rate was underneath 19.5. But we do see an incremental increase by each year. 2010, 2011, still increasing. 2012, it hits 19.5% of people who are feeling isolated and lonely globally. And it steadily increases 2014 all the way up, still increasing to 2019. Then there's a huge jump between 2019 and 2021. It goes to 21.0%. And of course, that jump is when the pandemic started, when we were isolated, we were staying at home, restaurants closed, we couldn't see our families. But what's interesting to me is in 2021, things started opening up in the world. Restaurants started opening. We were able to visit our families. We were able to socialize more. And I thought that I would start seeing a decrease in how people felt isolated or felt lonely. But exactly the opposite is happening. What I'm seeing, according to this chart and the studies that have been done, is that loneliness and isolation is rapidly increasing. So even though we are among people, we are still feeling isolated. So let's go back to the first stats that we saw. Even though we are around people. 52% of Americans, we still feel lonely. Even though we're socially active, 47% of us still do not feel that we're in a relationship that has meaning. Even though we're interacting with people, there's still 12% of us that feel that we have no close friends. Even though we are interacting and doing things with other people, 58, over half of us still feel that sometimes or always we feel like no one knows us at all. Why is that? Why is it that we are still around people, but we're feeling more lonely than we've ever felt before? So, as mentioned, if we are around people and we're interacting with people, why are the stats continuing to go up, 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 and up? I feel that there's many factors, but one of the major factors that I believe it has to do with, it's our support system. So let's take a look at what I have drawn here. We have a support system, and our support system should consist of people who are in our outer circle, our middle circle, and our inner circle. And I think what's happening is that there are a lot of people that we have in our inner circle, that should not be there. That should be either in our middle or in our outer circle. And when there are people who should not be in this inner circle that are there, and it causes us pain and disappointments and rejection, then we start isolating. We start giving up. We feel unworthy, unloved, unaccepted. And that's where I think we need to start. I want to empower you to start building a support system that will support you mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So let's take a look at your support system. As mentioned, there's should be people in your outer circle, the middle circle, and the inner circle. And we already discussed that sometimes what leads to isolation is that we're getting hurt. There's people that should be on the outer circle that we have in the inner circle. And we're going to discuss, I need to break this down. We're going to start with who should be in your outer circle. So let's take a look at that. Your outer circle should be community and resources. General title, they should be acquaintances. They consist of co-workers, bosses, neighbors, online community. And these group of people are there to provide help, inspiration, and a sense of belonging. And when I say a sense of belonging, I mean that in a broad way, not in a very specific way. And I'll go into that some more. So I wanted to identify what an acquaintance is. And you're probably laughing and go, well, Sally, I know what acquaintance is, but I need to define it, and I'll explain why. An acquaintance is a casual encounter. I'll say it again. Casual encounter. That is, as you're walking by, you're waving, say hi to somebody. When you're in a line, in a grocery store or in a store, any type of store, and you talk to somebody, or you see somebody and you say hi, and then you go, hi, how are you? And that person either says fine, casual, or you'll find that some of those people will go into a very long story of their whole life. Their father died, their sister died, they just lost their job. Truthfully and honest, that type of conversation should be had either by people who are in your middle circle or your inner circle. Acquaintances should not be talking, or outer circle people should not be talking this intimately to another person. But I say this, I'm saying this because I want you guys to live in the rule and not the exception. There's an exception to the rule. You're going to have people. I have people when I'm in line. Hi, good morning. How are you? They start on with this whole big thing of dramaticness of what's going on in their life. Two things go through my mind, and I want you to think this way also, is when somebody starts talking to me, rattling on about their lives, I think they must not have too many people to really talk to, number one. And number two, I'm sympathetic. I'm empathetic. I will say, I'm sorry that you're having a bad day. I'm sorry that you're going through this. And sometimes in my conversation with them, I can see a way where I can help them. I feel like there's something I can do. I don't feel that all the time, but sometimes I do feel that. Most of the time, I just am empathetic. I'm sorry that you're having a hard day. I hope that your day continues to get better. But I'm saying this because I don't want you to be living in that zone all the time. You need to be an acquaintance when you're out with people. You should not be rattling off about everything that's going on in your personal life. That is for the inner circle people. Coworkers. Coworkers are part of your community. It provides a sense of belonging. You work for the same company. You're everybody's on the same page. You're working towards a certain situation in your department. The whole company is a group. There's a sense of belonging. I get that. I understand that. However, and I'm going to put this in with your bosses too. Your boss, same thing, sense of belonging. He's there to lead and to implement whatever the company is telling him he needs to implement. Your coworker and your bosses should not be part of your inner circle. Your coworkers are people who you show baby pictures to. You talk about your family in the sense of who's graduated from college, graduation pictures, baby pictures. You may throw a shower. You may go out for drinks or dinner for a birthday or some other type of celebration. You might periodically meet a family member if they're coming to some type of business event. Your coworkers should not be, in general, there's an exception to every rule, but like I said, we do not live in the exception, we live in the rule. The coworker and your bosses should not be part of your inner circle. You're not going to be calling your coworker in the middle of the night when you're scared or you're upset or something happens or you need them on the weekends, or somebody who needs to understand that you're fearful or know your inner self. Your coworkers should not be in that space, nor should your bosses. And I'm going to say this, and it's just going to sound really cold. And I know there's exception to every rule, and I have to keep saying we don't live in the exception. We live in the reality, or in general. That's where I want you to be. When push comes to shove, 99.9% of your coworkers will push you under the bus to save themselves. That's just the nature of business. That's just the way it is. I have been in business for many, 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 many years, and I have seen it, I have experienced it, and I know it to be true. Neighbors. Neighbors are there. Again, part of the description is to provide help, inspiration, and a sense of belonging. Neighbors are fabulous. Neighbors are great because, again, you feel a sense of belonging. You live in the same county. You live in the same town. You have cookouts. You have flea markets. You go to the flea markets together. They're there to wave hello. When I was growing up, my neighbors always had children my age, so all our families knew each other. We knew. I played with their kids. They came over. Their parents knew each other. Um, you may know your neighbors because your kids all go to the same school. I know when I was staying with my daughter, the neighbors were extremely helpful when I locked myself out of her house. She was away on vacation. I was dog sitting, and she says, "Go to my neighbors. They have a key." And they did, and they let me in, and they were extremely helpful. We had a neighbor come just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where their dog was lost. And they said, "Can you please help me find your dog? Have you seen my dog? Can you help me find my dog?" We went out and helped find the dog. We found the dog. So neighbors are very important. They're helpful, but I would not call my neighbor on a general every day, again, exception to the rule, if I cannot sleep in the middle of the night, if I'm having bad dreams, if they're not a person that I would be talking to or should be talking to about my innermost fears, about my things that I want in life, that is not the conversation I should be having with my neighbors. That's inner circle. I'm talking about outer circle today, and I'm going to drive this home. I want you guys to know that there's people that should be in your outer circle, that should stay in your outer circle, that sometimes you people put in your inner circle. Now, I understand with coworkers or bosses that you're going to have a vulnerable moment. There was a time when I got a call from my daughter. She lives out of state. There was an emergency. I went up to my boss and I told him that my daughter needed me, and I started very systematic. But as I was explaining the emergency, I did start to cry. And that was acceptable. It was an emotional time. He understood. He was sympathetic. He said, "Go ahead, go. Keep us in touch. Let us know what we can do for you." Wonderful. That is what a boss should do. There are times when I am having a hard day at work, and I literally, because I worked in an open concept, kind of open concept setting, and there are times when I was just so frustrated either by a customer or something that I was researching, it just wasn't working, or something wasn't working. I would pound my head on the desk, and the person next to me would go, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Regroup." And then she goes, "You got this, Sally." And that was just what I needed. But she didn't see me fall apart. What she saw was I was frustrated, I regrouped, and kept going on. That is what you want your coworkers to see. I have had coworkers who literally fall apart and cry at everything that stresses them out. First of all, your coworkers aren't going to respect you. Because you're falling apart every 10 seconds, and your boss is not going to see you as a material that you can get promotions on, because if you can't handle yourself, how are you possibly going to handle a team of other people when there is a lot of pressures and a lot of other things coming at you? So just to reiterate again, that the outer circle is community and resources. They consist of acquaintances, co-workers, bosses, neighbors, because they provide help, they provide inspiration, and a sense of belonging. Okay, we're going to head on to another topic which I left for the end, which is online communities. And that's where I said it is broad. We're going to go broad. We're not going to go specific. Online communities, you can feel a sense of community. You can feel that they're helpful, and you can even feel that they inspire you. How many people do I follow where they've been extremely helpful? If I can't sleep, I listen to a professional that has done sleep studies or is a sleep specialist, extremely helpful. If I'm trying to lose weight or trying to eat better or learn about inflammation or learn about something that's going on in my brain or some type of health issue, we can find somebody online that is a professional and is helpful and informative. I know that we feel a sense of community when we find somebody who dresses like us, right? It's great. Christmas is here, and I looked at some of my YouTubers to get great suggestions on great tops, great outfits, and that was wonderful. And I'm glad they did the all the work, and I was just able to press and order. Fabulous, love it, extremely helpful, wonderful. Um, but I need you to understand that the online community is just that. Again, I know there's an exception to the rule. I know that there are people who were looking for help for their children and found a community of people, autistic and or seizures or that were so helpful, and you felt just so connected to the people that were so helpful to help you find a solution when it comes to your children, because we love our children so much, and anybody who can help us, we just feel an immediate connection. However, in general, you're not going to dial up your online community person, or you should not, in the middle of the night. They're not going to be there if your husband just left you or is cheating on you, or you're going through some type of really personal thing. That is what your inner circle is. They have been proven. They will be there day and night. It doesn't matter what time. That is what your inner circle is for. If your online community is meeting that need, then something is wrong. Something is wrong. They should not be part of your inner circle. And there's science, which we're going to talk about, how the online community, if you're always online, always like just, scrolling and you're not outside, you're not communicating with anybody, there's no eye contact. And eye contact online and eye contact in person has been proven by science, and we're going to talk about it, that it has a complete different effect. So if you're saying, well, I'm talking to people online, the connection that you have online does not trigger the endorphins that you need. And there's a bunch of other things that we're going to talk about it. We're getting into that next. So there is a science, and something happens to your brain when you're communicating online that adds to your depression and adds to your feeling of loneliness. And there's a reason. You're not meant to be alone. You're not meant to be communicating socially. That is not good health brain, and there's science to prove it. So let's get into that. In-person interaction activates stronger brain pathways than online interaction. Proven, science has proven it. I'll say it again. In-person interaction, that means us going out to dinner, us going for a walk, me picking up a phone, talking to you. In-person interactions activate stronger brain pathways than online interactions. Just letting that sink in for a second. Face-to-face conversations trigger heightened activity in empathy regions. I'll say that again. Face-to-face conversations trigger heightened activity in empathy regions. Many years ago, my daughter's like 30 something now. Years and years and years ago, I noticed that her generation, all they did was text. I'm like, just pick up the phone and talk to them. Just pick up the phone. No, text. And I knew and felt back then, before science really ever spoke about it, that something's not right. That the connection and I told her that. I said, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel connected. There is something going to be missing in you constantly texting versus you picking up the phone and talking to somebody. That was years ago. And it has increased, and now science has proven it. that face-to-face conversation triggers heightened activity in empathy regions. You're empathetic to each other. You're bonding. You're building. You the screen and the text doesn't do it. To today, I say to you, if you can, and I encourage you to, if you want good mental health, if you want to feel less lonely, pick up the phone and talk to your friend. Pick up the phone and talk to your challenge. Pick up the phone and talk to your friend. Try to bring down your texting to less. Understood, you need to just text to get a quick thingy, but conversations, how are you, should not be how are you texting. It should pick up a phone, how are you? Thinking about you. And it makes you much more aware of it takes more time because you have to understand when is their dinner time, when are they home. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Pick up a phone and say, how are you? I'm thinking about you. It registers different in their mind and it registers different in your mind and in your heart. It the way that the person feels and hears when they get a call, how are you, registers different in their brain and in their endorphins than it does when you text. Are you understanding that? Okay. Screen time suppresses and reduces social engagement. The more you're on the screen, the more your mind suppresses your urge to be around other people, which is, I can't say suppresses the urge, reduces, you become less social engaged. Okay, I told you there's science to back this all up. The brain treats loneliness like hunger. So your brain, you are made up for connection. Your brain pushes you for connection just like it pushes you for food, to find food. That is massive. When we reconnect socially, the reward system activates dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, oxytocin. Stagno, get it together. I'll say it again. When we reconnect socially, the reward system activates dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. So when we are not connected socially, we're not getting rewarded. No wonder we're feeling lonely. No wonder we're feeling depressed. No wonder we feel isolated. Reconnect, stress hormones like cortisol rise, making us more sensitive to negative emotions. Facts. This is the way our brain works. This is how our brain regulates us. This is why we feel disconnected. Um, the brain treats loneliness like hunger. When we're hungry, our brain pushes us to eat, and when we're thirsty, to drink. It's driven. We have to have it. The brain works the same way, pushes us like food to be connected. That is really intense. It was important to me that we talk about why in-person bonds matter. As we talk about our outer circle, our middle circle, our inner circle, it's bonding, it's connecting. It's our outer circle is our community and our resources. Our middle circle is our meaningful bonds, and our inner circles are our core connections. I just want to stress this point. Face-to-face interactions activate stronger brain pathways than digital ones. Eye contact and presence boosts trust, empathy, and belonging. Online ties can supplement connection but do not replace real world support. I'm going to say that again. Face to face interactions activate stronger brain pathways than digital ones. Proven, it's science. Eye contact, not on screen, not on the computer, eye contact, interacting with people face to face, and presence boosts trust. We build trust when we interact face to face with people. It builds a trust in our brain and our emotions. It also builds empathy. We're more empathetic toward each other. We are concerned, we're caring, we're more loving because that is the bond that our brain and our hearts and our emotions do. Online does not do that. The computer can't do that. It doesn't do that. No matter what you're saying to yourself, I feel whatever, it's inaccurate. Science has proven that that's not what it does. Online ties can supplement connection, but doesn't replace real world support. Hey friends, are you still with me? Thank you so much for joining me as we explored your support system, specifically your outer circle and who really belongs in that space and who doesn't. Next week, we're moving inward and talking about the middle circle as we continue building a support system that sets you up to win. If something today made you pause or go, that's interesting, drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what's resonating with you, what you're trying, the shifts you're starting to feel, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you never miss an episode. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. You can listen to a million voices on social media, but if you're truly looking for change, I created a simple worksheet to help you slow down, reflect, and feel. Honestly, I encourage you to start a journal. It doesn't take long, but it helps you reconnect with yourself. I want to share a personal story, a moment when my own outer circle revealed something I didn't even know I was struggling with. How the pandemic changed me. For 2 years, the company I worked for went fully remote. I was a single woman living in a new area, and my entire family, my primary support system, was out of state. I worked from home, wore a mask everywhere, and when I did go into the office, masks were mandatory. If you know me, you know I'm naturally extroverted. I'm people-centric. I care deeply about making others feel seen. But during the pandemic, something shifted. When the mask went on, I didn't realize how much of myself went into hiding with it. I used to smile at people, read their expressions, feel their energy, but with masks, all I could see were eyes, and eyes alone didn't tell me much. Without realizing it, I stopped looking for connection. I stopped acknowledging people. I stopped smiling. And because the streets were empty and the office was empty, my mind stopped expecting people altogether. I started walking with my head down. I talked less. I lived alone, so when work ended, the silence continued. And all of these tiny, everyday nonverbal cues, the ones that tell us how everyone is really doing, disappeared. The cheerful coworker who suddenly looks tired. The person walking slower than usual. The overwhelmed eyes. All of that was gone, and without those cues, something in me went quiet too. The imaginary mask. When we finally returned to the office and masks came off, I noticed something unsettling. I was still wearing an imaginary mask. I walked the halls without saying hello. I didn't look people in the eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't use people's names. I moved through the world like I was still hidden. I didn't realize at the time, but I was sad, deeply sad. And it was people in my outer circle, the acquaintances, the coworkers, the strangers I passed, who became the mirror that showed me something was wrong. I wasn't connecting. I wasn't engaging. I wasn't me. Choosing to come back to myself. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to let the pandemic steal the part of me that loves people. But coming back wasn't easy. I had to practice being myself again. I lifted my head on purpose. I forced myself to smile at people as I walked by. When someone opened the door for me, I made myself make eye contact and say thank you. I printed out the office phone list and practiced names until they came naturally again. I stopped at one desk a day just to say hello and connect. It felt awkward at first, like lifting emotional weights. But slowly my heart remembered, my mind remembered, my spirit remembered, and little by little Sally came back. The outer circle people, the ones we often overlook, became my compass. They showed me how disconnected I had become, and they helped guide me back to humanity. Why your outer circle matters. So now it's your turn. Write down who's in your outer circle. Think about how you interact with them. Notice how you show up or don't show up. In those small everyday moments, smile at someone as you walk by. Look at people in the eyes. Say thank you. Say hello in the line. Excuse me. Wave to the mail carrier. These tiny gestures are not insignificant. They are signs of connection or the signs that connection is slipping. Your outer circle is a gift. It shines a light on how connected or disconnected you are from the world around you. In closing, don't brush off your outer circle as unimportant. They matter. They are part of your existence. And if you need to practice reconnecting like I did, then practice. Slow down. See people. Let your outer circle be your compass. Remember the visual? We are climbing this mountain together. Every step is a win.